And we are live.
We're live, everyone. How are you doing on this Thursday? Very windy Thursday where I am. Um, Today on Discourse Live, we are going to talk about some of our favorite effects scenes from the horror movie, some of our favorite horror movies, or just in general, because one of them is not one of my favorite horror movies that find quite good. And of course, if you've been watching the show the past few weeks, you know the panel. We've got Nathan here today with us.
Hey, everybody.
With his beautiful Freddy stuff behind him.
More than Freddy back here.
Oh yeah, I still love that glove, that Jesse hand or whatever. I don't know what to call it. Yes, that piece is great.
Yeah.
Kind of a rare piece.
Yeah.
We've Seth is with us today, all the way from Moby Dick's stomach. Get Keith Saunders. He's here, and he can't figure out how to work the video, so unfortunately we won't have video except for just looking at our ugly mugs.
I'm sorry.
And of course, Jared is back with his crab rangoon, hopefully, and hopefully it's savory. We heard your whole conversation while you're gone. Great mic you got there. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite effects scenes. We had talked about possibly delving into some of our favorite makeup effects for characters. Like first ones come to mind are Pumpkinhead and Jason and stuff. Freddy, of course. But we're we'll stick to favorite effects scenes today. And we at the end, if you watch the last show, at the tail end of the show, the last hour and 20 minutes or so, we talked about some of our favorite effects scenes because Stuart Gordon's films had a lot of great practical effects, and we talked about CG versus practical a little bit and how we prefer practical. And I think there's something I don't know. There's something you get with CG that you don't get. More realism for sure, I think. Even though sometimes you get effects like in a movie, like some of the like Zombie, for instance, Lucio Fulci, the zombies and their terracotta makeup is not great because they can't even open their mouths to eat their victims. It's more like like they're rats. And then you get effects like The Thing, for instance, which is probably the biggest and best effects show in all of the horror genre, probably almost in everything other than Star Wars. Well, I mean, The Fly, the transformation of Jeff Goldblum into Brundlefly is quite striking, especially with all the different things that happen to him throughout the course of the movie. The complete breakdown of him as a human into turning into the Fly. Anyway, with all that, with a scattered intro, because let's face it, cabin fever has set in. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm ready for the weekend.
It seems like there's a somber tone. Maybe I just need to turn the fan up a little bit. There we go. Seth, you doing okay?
Doing good.
Okay.
Just depressed I couldn't get video working.
That's okay. We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So we were all tasked to find 5 of our favorite effects scenes that are all practical effects, and I'm sure there were a lot of duplicates because, I mean, while there are plenty of effect shots, I'm sure a lot of us have our favorites because there's some that are just so good. Like, for instance, I'll just throw one out there. The scene from The Thing. I stayed away from The Thing when choosing mine, but the scene from The Thing, we all know the scene. You got to be fucking kidding. That's one of the best scenes ever. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, not at all.
I think it is. And moving on from that, because that's an obvious one. Pretty much anything from The Thing is just amazing. Let's get into. Eventually. Oh, hold on. Okay, I'll make sure I share this video, and if you're watching, feel free to share the video. Get some conversation going. We definitely want to hear from you on what you like as far as effects go. We're gonna start with Seth and see what he's got. Go ahead, Nate. Let's name one. We'll go around naming one each, starting with Seth. Then we'll go Nate, then Keith, and Jared. So does that sound good? Or
Sounds
Yeah,
fine.
sure.
all right. Well, let's go.
I guess the first one I'm going to name is the transformation in American Werewolf in London.
How did I know you were gonna go there?
It's my favorite horror movie, so
Don't worry, you two sent me two of the same ones, so
Oh, really? Well, how? American Werewolf or The
Nope.
Howling?
The Howling.
Yeah. So let's talk about the American Werewolf in London
Yep.
transformation scene. Go ahead, Seth. You take it away.
it's just I don't know, just Rick Baker's effects are fantastic, and it's like what I love about it is how painful it looks, whereas most werewolf transformations in most movies, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like plain, people just transform like that, whereas you kind of feel David's transformation, with the way that his his skin and his limbs and his muscles, bones, just the whole transformation was very painful and very creative. And then you had the music to go with it. Just I don't know.
I think the lead up to that scene, even though, is very good with him kind of getting stir crazy and he starts sweating so much. And the one thing that always caught my eye was, why is that door open? The door to the outside, I guess to cool him off or something. But
he goes and opens it up because he's in the apartment. He's like feeling hot, and they show him go to the outside door and open it up, step outside, and then he just leaves it open like a dick.
yeah, I mean, it's just, could you imagine being a neighbor and walking by and seeing him laying on, the scene where it shows him laying on the ground mid transformation?
Yeah.
Some old lady walks up, how your doors are? Oh my god, what's wrong with this guy? I mean, at least he wasn't hanging brain, so, I guess. But I mean, before that, the effects, there weren't very many werewolf transformation effects that were great. I mean, even going back to the Wolfman in 1941, I mean, that was about as good as it got, really, right? But then there were two movies that stepped up in '81 that had two great transformation effects, and I prefer. I mean, okay, I prefer The Howling overall as a movie, and I like how different each transformation is, because I also cited The Howling as a good one to talk about, because that, with the bubbly skin. Anybody want to chime in on this?
The Howling's the best. I finally saw The Howling. What was it? Maybe 2 months, 3 months ago, maybe. I don't think it compares to American Werewolf's transformation, but I like the face manipulation, like where it's like bulging out.
Mhm.
Bladder stuff.
Yeah, the bladder stuff.
Yeah.
I like American Werewolf in London more myself, but
they're both so different. That's the best thing.
yeah,
about
they're
them.
not anything like each other.
They have a different style.
And they're different werewolves too.
Monster Squad transformation is pretty cool too.
Oh, that's the monsters in the Monster Squad. All are fantastic monsters. I love that werewolf. I love the mummy. I love the creature.
The creature's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they did a great job. I think I heard it was Fred Decker, said that they did the monsters the way he wanted them in his head, I think.
Oh, I think Universal didn't give them the rights to do it, or wouldn't. Yeah, so they had to make their own version.
And they did a good job. A real good job. I don't think there's anyone who'll disagree in saying that American Werewolf in London, that it doesn't have the best transformation scene of all werewolf films ever. That's one of my biggest issues with Dog Soldiers is there's no transformation scene. Everybody thinks it's a great movie, but werewolf movies have to have that scene, in my opinion.
Pretty low budget movie though. Too.
Yeah,
true.
Still, I mean, just glue some hair on somebody in phases, like the.
How do you really follow Baker and Botina? Like they just kind of set the bar, like they set the bar, and like no one's topped it.
Yeah, they set the bar over 30 years ago, really high.
40, almost 40.
So that, like, when you talk about werewolf, it's like the jaw. Those are like the jaws of werewolf films. Like they're just like everything's compared to those movies. to the point where we don't get a lot of werewolf movies. I think it's
No, and now that we do, they rely heavily on CG, like Seth mentioned, The Werewolf in Paris, Underworld. I think the transformation was cool, but it was not practical at all.
Holy CGI, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool, and seeing almost a full transformation. I don't like the werewolves in that movie though; they're all bald and black. It's just not a good look. I think
I liked William in the second movie. The big white one, the original werewolf. He looked good, but
did they show a transformation scene in Van Helsing? Probably, right? No.
In Van Helsing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was CGI. It was the guy ripping all his flesh off and I guess shedding his skin. And
you're the werewolf expert. What else are there? Cursed has a werewolf. There's
what about the Company of Wolves? That image scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. The wolf mouth coming out of the guy. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of werewolf transformations, another one that was on my list was from the Howling 4, the original Nightmare, when the husband, his whole body begins to melt down to bone, and then he becomes a werewolf after. It's weird, and there's no like continuity with those movies, but it was a really cool visual effect of all of its flesh melting and that.
Kind of an Indiana Jones moment of melting flesh, except where you get to be a wolf instead of a skeleton. That's not a horror movie, but that's a great effect. I didn't even think about that. I didn't step into horror. I didn't think about that because we're talking horror though, right? Because otherwise, great effects. I jump right into Star Wars every time. So.
Yeah, but some effects can be horror related. That's why I was asking earlier. Like there are gruesome, gory, or like nasty effects that aren't in horror movies.
Apparently, the Master of Evil, Eli Roth, saw that movie in the theater, and when that scene happened, he saw the face melt. He got up and tried to get out of the theater to throw up, and threw up in the middle of the aisle. So, that's an effective scene. It looks great. It still looks great to this day. That scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and not a horror movie, but it's sure probably did scar a lot of kids, and
it's horrific at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So we basically, American Werewolf in London is the tops when it comes to werewolf transformation scenes, and the other side of that. Let's talk about Jack.
Jack, yeah, I love Jack. That movie, Jack's deterioration is my favorite part of the movie.
Mm-hmm. And first of all, the character himself is great, and trying to get his friend to kill himself. But like each time you see him, he's rotted just a little bit more until the very end. He's just like a skeleton, And but the makeup on that is gotta be the makeup team alone on American Werewolf in London is legendary for a legendary movie, and that's part of the reason. The story of American Werewolf in London is good, to me, not great. It's okay, but the effects just kind of take control.
Up for it.
I think so. Yeah, that's one of the reasons to watch the movie. The story is not a really like deep story. There's a great nightmare scene which I absolutely love, but other than that, it's just. The story's kind of flimsy to me. Sorry. But the effects are what steal the show in that movie. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, especially when Jack first shows up in the hospital room and like you see like his neck all shredded and there's that piece that just kind of
hang off. Yeah.
He's all like casual, kind of happy talking to his friend like nothing happened.
There's a great still of him with a big smile on his face, and you can see the flesh just hanging and all the blood. It's just. And then I'm sure Griffin Dunn had a great time wearing that makeup. I think I've never got to wear extensive makeup, and I hear it's a pain in the ass, especially if it covers this part of the face. But if it's on the neck or on the outside of it where it doesn't impede your breathing, I think I'd love to wear some makeup effects and just have fun with it.
I don't think he had a good time on that movie, according to the behind the scenes features.
Who knows?
Much work.
He saw himself and he was all depressed, I guess, when he saw himself in all that makeup.
But it's makeup. I don't know. Actors are weird sometimes. So let's move on to the second person. Who did I say was second?
I don't remember.
I was gonna say let's just let Nate go because he's probably. Uh,
I'll just leave.
so what's one that pops out for you?
For me,
Yeah.
I thought we were doing 10s. I got 10. But my number one is Freddy's demise in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 Dream Master.
Not just his demise, his resurrection is just as good.
Well, the resurrection is just as cool too.
Yeah.
But the demise of all the souls ripping him apart
Mm.
is to me my favorite sequence of the 80s special effects. Just that whole film is a special effects, like who's who.
Extravaganza.
I mean, you got Beekler, you got Mad George, you got Kevin Yeager, you got Howard Berger, you got or Steve Johnson's team doing that scene. Steve Johnson was put in charge of that. Steve, done Ghostbusters. He'd done a bunch of other stuff like that, and his team tackled this. And you've got so much going on. You've got a big giant 20-foot Freddy that they're using.
But they knocked over and pulled
the dental dim, and they knocked over the girl on top, and you got Linnea Quigley in there as one of the souls, and then you got
push harder, Linnea. Did you ever hear that? They're trying to push harder, Linnea. They're trying to get her boobs on. Yeah.
And then you got they got Robert wearing the chest piece, and it took 12 people that puppeteer those hands and everything coming out.
Cool.
And it looked mime thing and strapped to him, and he's doing the mime thing, and
especially the one that comes out of the back of his head.
And then they rip his head apart, and just that whole sequence, the set that Mick and CJ had, and with the cathedral, this fight scene. I think they said it took 3 units to shoot that for 2 weeks or something. And I actually Bill Force was on Steve's team. And I just someone put me in contact with him. He was one of the makeup people, and he has one of the largest collections of casts, face casts from films. And I was able to get a Part 4 Freddy. But I think it's from that scene right here.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it looks like it based on the facial expression.
Yeah, and so he sold me this, and when he did, I didn't realize he sent me a DVD that had 2-3 hours of all the home videos from the makeup from the sets.
Wow.
Or from behind the scenes. Yeah, I was like, wow, I that was worth the price alone. It's just him and Steve driving around LA and then going to the workshop and building this set and that set piece and then shooting behind the scenes stuff. It's incredible. I mean, some of that stuff's on the making of, because I'm sure y'all have seen the making of Dream Master, that VHS that came out in the 80s. I remember watching that. It's an hour long, just behind the scenes of it. But that scene has I just think it was, when I look at those slasher films of the 80s, if you were a makeup artist, Nightmare was the one to get on, because it's not just stabbings and beheadings. It's you're going to be building some inventive shit. You're going to be doing some cool, how do we do that? How do we pull this off?
You could really be creative.
Yeah. So I'd hand you a script and go, wow, we got to do this. This was cool. I got to turn a girl into a cockroach. Okay. That kind of thing. There was so much.
That's a great one too.
Yeah, I mean, Dream Master's got so many great ones, but like you said, the Resurrection's amazing.
Oh my God!
But the when they rip them apart at the end, that was just a really cool.
That's a good way to book in the series. That movie though is 2 great effects shots with the resurrection and the death. I mean, I love in Dream Warriors, the end of the movie when you get the kind of the love letter to Harryhausen with the skeleton fight, and then pouring the
holy water.
Yeah, the holy water, putting the cross, and you see Freddy spinning around. That's really cool and everything, but they really upped it at the end of Dream Master. I think it's by far his best demise in all the movies, regardless of effects.
Easily,
yeah. And of course, that is my favorite Freddy movie. And plus his resurrection with being resurrected by a dog named Jason with Fire P. And I mean, to think about the resurrection itself, because I almost didn't put, that's one of the ones that I left off my list because we said 5. I thought we said 5, but 10. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about anything we want to. But the resurrection scene, I mean, with all the work of like bringing his organs back and his skin, just so much going on in that show. Both show, I mean, I think that movie is underrated because it's the MTV Freddy. You know, he puts the sunglasses on and all that stuff. But man, it is like you said, it has who's who of '80s effects working on that movie, and they pull off some really crazy shit. Even the Sheila dummy or whatever it was after she sucked face with Freddy was really cool.
One of my favorite ones from that is Debbie when she's turned into the cockroach.
Yeah.
Her arms peel off. And, yeah.
When I was a kid, when I saw the trailer, they had like a snippet of that in the trailer, and you could see her like just with the cockroach torso, like inside the thing. It's like, what is that? I'm 8 years old, like my mind is blowing. I think it's the first time a trailer ever like just had me so excited to see a movie, and it delivered. Effects in that movie.
It was great when her head is stuck to the floor and she
pulls
it up, and I love that movie.
Yeah, Dream Master, give it another watch and pay attention to the effects because man, they are, especially in the late '80s when they started kind of doing less. I think Dream Master belongs up there with one of the great effects movies.
Well, it's such a the talent involved in that. Rennie Harlan, there's just another level of cinema in that movie, and the fact that they made that when the writer's strike was going on, there really wasn't a finished script. The fact that movie works at all, really, because they were making up most of it on the way as they went.
Well, there was a writer's strike then.
In '88, there was a writer's strike. I don't know if that had the effect on that movie. I know Halloween 4 was under that because Alan McElroy wrote Halloween 4 in I don't know, a matter of weeks because of the writer's strike. But I know that they didn't have a finished, complete, solid script when Dream Master started filming because they were just trying to capitalize on Dream Warriors, and so Dream Child and Dream Master were kind of pumped out really quick.
Well, they turned out better than Freddy's Dead.
But you've got Hopkins and you got Harlan, who were really visionary filmmakers who went on to be like Die Hard movies and Predator movies and all that.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And Bob Shea was a little wary about hiring this Finnish guy. Just real fast, Kathy Lafayette says Ginger Snaps effects were pretty cool. So touch on that. The beginning when the girls are setting up all their photos is amazing, in my opinion. Stan Winston is phenomenal, of course.
Of course.
You don't know that. And then Kathy mentions Uncle Frank from Hellraiser, and of course the Cenobites. Those would be in our character episode. Great movie makeup. So
we just did that show, so I didn't bring up the transformation of Frank, but of course we talked a little bit about how amazing that is.
Yeah. I figured Frank would come up.
I left him out because we already did that episode.
That's why I left Frank off my list. I tried to think of things that aren't my go-tos, like Jason or Freddy or anything like that. So in my list, but are we, Keith? You got one ready for us, or?
I'll bring up the one that I thought nobody would bring up, but Nathan did. The collision crash in Death Proof.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love how it's shot because it just shows each kill and then the headlights coming on, another kill, headlights coming on. But
it's all slowed down.
They put so much work into that. Like each one of those girls in that car are like literal dummies that they made look really. Yeah. And they even built them from inside out, like especially the one girl's face because the tire rips through it.
That fucking tire ripping her face off.
It's amazing.
The fact that that's all practical is just Nicotero and John McCloud and they're wow. And Tarantino said, if you can't do this, I'm not going to be able to film this scene because he won't do it digitally. It had to be practical. And yeah, that one. I'm a Tarantino nerd, so that was why I picked it. That's why but it's amazing. It's one of those examples of modern films with practical effects and that, like, it's phenomenal. Like they had to make like I think 12 of those dummies
Jesus.
ultimately.
I'll say I know they made like 3 of that one girl's leg, and they built it out of resin bone, and then did the tenons, and then did the skin, so it could actually like rip apart like a leg would.
Actually have the Whipple effect.
Yeah, and like if glass or metal cut one, you would actually see the cuts and the blood and the muscle.
See the tendons underneath.
It's like 45 people to make one of those dummies.
It was absurd. I was reading about it earlier.
This is why we shouldn't keep these secret, because I haven't watched that movie in 13 years.
The movie's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing 13 years ago for sure. But I would have liked to see that scene so I could, jump in and say, "Oh yeah, that was great."
I'm sorry, I couldn't get video.
I don't remember it at all. This is why we shouldn't keep things a secret.
Like Jordan, like they hit head on. Jordan Lag goes flying out the windshield, and Sidney Poitier's leg comes flying off, bouncing on the pavement, and then the Nova's tire just rips to the girl. She closes her eyes, and it just peels out on her face.
Goes right on her face. Yeah.
God damn it! I guess I need to watch it again because
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's Sidney Poitier's daughter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not his granddaughter. His daughter.
Well, that sounds awesome. So check that out if you get a chance. If you haven't seen it in a while, like me, because I'll be checking that. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I've been meaning to watch it. Now I got a good reason. So I don't remember that until now. I did watch the other one recently.
Planet Terror.
Yeah, Planet, which I really enjoy. Good effects in that movie too. Jared, do you have something?
Yeah, I had a couple of them. I wasn't able to find a couple of like videos for some of the ones that I found because I was trying to find something that nobody else would think about.
Hey, actually, I got a video before you go. Hey, Seth, why don't you just edit that into like a big clip that we'll just share with our followers? Can you do that?
Oh, Seth can do that. Yeah.
Talking to me. Yeah, I can.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'll put everything we talked about and add it into a big video.
Yeah, do that, and we'll share that for everybody, especially that scene that you were just talking about.
Say, can I just do it janky mode and like hold my phone up to the screen?
No. All right, Jared. Sorry.
No, you're good. My ultimate favorite slasher kill of all time is Jason from Jason X, which is kind of probably surprising to a lot of people, but it's the liquid nitrogen face palm into the counter death scene. Like it's just fucking badass.
Yeah.
I didn't think about putting any Jason stuff in there because there's a lot of good stuff, especially his death in part 4. But I mean, when you look at lists of like top 10 favorite kills, that's always up there as one of the best. Is that nitrogen from Jason? That's probably the best part of that entire movie, except for when KN fall off. That's pretty cool too.
Her nipples fall off.
Yeah, you remember? He's trying to fit nipple. What do you need these? There's some good stuff about that. I'm not a big fan of that movie, but yeah, that's definitely the highlight of that movie in my opinion.
And that's the weird thing because it's not even nearly one of the best sequels of the franchise, but it has, in my opinion, the best kill of the entire franchise.
We could probably spend an episode talking about the best kills in the Friday the 13th franchise, and I believe
probably
I have to believe that one would wind up on top, or at least the top 2. I mean, there's a couple of my
sleeping
favorite
bag scene.
Yeah, that's a good one. Very, very well known. But my favorite, it was always the Sheriff Garris being bent in half, and the way they did that by like digging him in a hole, and that was one of the coolest. And the sound it makes, and Jason Lives, if you don't remember. But yeah,
I like some of the more subtle ones that are more inventive, like the girl on the bicycle where it goes past her, and you see the shadow of her getting impaled. I just like the creativity of, hey, how can I shoot this scene? All right, we're moving towards it. We go past it, like what? And then we see the lightning strike, and that. Or I remember part in that same one where what's the guy that's trying to find his sister, or
Rob.
yeah, where he's screaming, he's killing me, he's killing me, or
Yeah,
that's part 4.
That was disturbing as shit.
Yeah, and you don't even see what's going on.
Yeah, but it's just so effective because it's like his realization that he's dying.
Right, and he's this big tough guy who, out hunting Jason. He's killing me.
Yeah, it's frightening to think, like, because he's aware that he's bleeding out, dying, and that's terrifying.
And I mean, I don't give for enough credit for some of the things they did in that movie, because sometimes it may be my Overwatch Jason movie, but like I said, the face smash scene in the shower, with the best looking dude on the whole set, he just gets yeah, and some symbolism maybe that scene, and then of course again Jason's death at the very end with the machete going through his head is fucking amazing. There's a lot of good stuff going on in that movie. Maybe we'll have to do that sometime just for fun. Do a favorite Jason, like pick 5 movies. Julius's death is kind of silly, but and Jason Takes Manhattan pops his head right off. That's always good. But
he was fucking Jason up for like a minute or two.
No, he was not. He was not fucking anybody except for his own knuckles. See how bloody those things were?
Ray, you sent me one from Friday 13th Part 1, didn't you?
Oh, just because of the simplicity of it. And I remember, it's Kevin Bacon's death scene in that movie, Through the Bed, how they had one of the images in the book, they have like, I guess Tom Savini's sketch of how they did it.
Yeah, he's underneath the bed the whole time.
Yeah, and then
it's a hose
where there was an air bubble, and Tasso had to blow the bubble. It squirted out, and it just worked so perfectly. It seems like such an easy effect because it's a half torso or whatever, and they just did some makeup, and it's such a good, really effective effect. That's definitely one of my favorites of all time. I mean, just that, and then the girl at the beginning that gets her throat slashed. Another kind of simple effect. They just, it's just. I think I'm more about simplicity and almost realism in a way, because Sheriff Garris's is kind of the same way. It's not a bloody death, but he's just bent backwards, and you hear his bones pop. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. I don't know if I have a favorite overall, because I think Brundlefly, that whole movie is an effects show. But the scene where he's there's so many scenes in that movie where he's like explaining how Brundlefly eats, or when he starts noticing that he's losing his teeth and his nails and stuff like that, and he's collecting them in jars, or even the last scene where he comes out and puts the gun to his face. It's such a heartbreaking scene in the movie, but that whole movie is just like The Thing. I think we should omit those movies as just because they're just complete effects shows, If you don't like The Fly, I don't understand who you are as a horror fan. Seriously, that movie's got everything you could ever ask for, including Gina Davis. She's an American treasure. So one of my favorites, moving on from The Fly, is Demons, or Demons 2, the transformation of the demons. I think I am a sucker for transformation scenes, because I think most of the stuff I sent over was transformation scenes. But watching their teeth get popped out, and the demon teeth growing, and the veins bulging in their arms and their head, their eyes changing. Every single transformation that you get a good close up of, especially Sally in Part 2. I'm a big fan of Italian horror, and Demons 2 was probably the first one I ever saw. And that transformation of Sally at her birthday party, before she goes completely fucking bonkers on everybody and starts killing them, is just one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, or both movies. I prefer Demons 2 over Demons 1. But I don't know, you guys, I know, Nate, you don't watch much Italian horror, but you ever seen Demons 2?
Yeah, Demons 2. Yeah, I saw them. They're fantastic. Like, if you're talking about Italian horror, those would be high on my list. Those. Is that Umberto Bob?
Yeah, that's Bob.
Yeah, Bava's.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, for some reason I did artwork for Black Pimp guy. What's his name? Oh, I forget his name now.
I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
He was a T-shirt for an actor reached out to me, and I did a T-shirt that he would sell at conventions. Yeah, I like that. I like the demon movies.
Yeah, I think they get kind of weird after the because there's some great effects scenes in which is one of the 4 versions of Demons 3, The Church, that I would definitely recommend as the proper sequel, even though it's not really proper because they're different, but it's the better of all the 4 Demons 3s. Because
that called themselves Demon
yeah, if you
Threes.
know Italian horror, when comes to sequels, it starts getting really messy because there's like 4 different Demons 3. You know, there's Zombie 5 that are 4 different Zombie 5s. But anyway, just to throw it out there, I think a lot of the effects on some of the early 80s, late 70s Italian horror movies are really not great, but at the same time they are because they're so bad. Excuse me. Like I was watching a documentary about the makeup. Excuse me. My goodness.
My goodness, what is wrong with you?
Going on. I had a turkey sandwich. Anyway, yeah. I'm just trying not to be like Jared and burp really loud. Is what's going on.
I'm sorry, I do that a lot.
Jared just lets it all out.
Yes, that's all. But like anyway, they apparently they used a lot of terracotta to make these zombie faces, which blows my mind because that stuff hardens really fast, I believe. It's like because they use that for plants, like potting plants. But anyway, Italian horror is silly and goofy, but they have some really fun effects that aren't great, but sometimes they are. Like Nightmare City has the worst looking zombies of all time.
So I actually picked an effect from an Italian horror movie.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Somebody who hates Italian horror. What is it?
I don't like Italian horror. The wood chip in the eye and zombie.
Oh yeah.
It's a great effect and a great scene.
Effect.
Yes, it is.
Then plus there's a lot of tension building up to that because it takes 5 minutes for the eye to get to the actual.
Well, yeah, it goes back and forth to the wood chip
and the
in her
music,
eye.
And the music too. Leading
I
up
like
to
I like how gooey her eyeball is.
Oh,
I mean, it's probably not realistic, maybe, but I like the way it looks.
If you get a chance and you've never watched an Italian movie, give them a chance. There's Zombie and The Beyond and See the Living Dead. The Fulci movies are great effect spectacles. Not great effects, just great effect spectacles. So check those out. Let's go back around the table to Seth again. Kathy Lafayette. She says she loves Italian horror. Well, we love you. Thank you. Go ahead, Seth.
All right. Well, a couple of mine were already mentioned, but another one I really like is from Halloween 3.
oh yeah,
was it Buddy's family when they're testing out the mask and
yeah,
the kids, just great. I like how slimy the mask got and all the worms and spiders and snakes and shit coming out.
That was one I almost picked.
That's such a confusing scene, though. It's like, why are there insects like good looking? Not why are the insects coming out of that mask? But I one of the things that always sticks out for me is how the mask kind of starts to deteriorate a little bit around his head, and then all the insects start coming out.
I like that it deteriorates like an actual pumpkin.
But the scene where the earlier in the movie when the silver shamrock thing misfires on that lady in the hotel room and her face, that's a great shot too.
Yeah,
another good movie that's got some good effect. Not a lot because there are a few good ones in that movie. That scene for sure, and then any scene with the androids or whatever they are.
Other than Tom Atkins getting it done.
Do we get to see his butt? Because that's a great effect shot.
Like every Tom Atkins movie.
Again, if you're a horror fan, you don't love Tom Atkins, you're doing it wrong.
If you don't love him, he'll make you love him.
Yeah, he's so charming.
You'll love him automatically. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis on The Fog asks if he's crazy or something like that. And he says, "Yeah," and they're in bed the next scene. So, what do? Nothing. You just go along with the flow. Yeah, that's probably the most memorable scene in that movie too. In Halloween 3, I would argue. Anybody else?
I love that whole movie.
I would agree.
That movie's fun.
It is. It's Halloween 3. And what's great about Halloween 3 is people are really starting to come around to it. I remember marathoning Halloween on TNT or something like that back in the early 90s. I think it was 1991 maybe. And they were showing Halloween 1, 2, 3, and 4, which were available at the time. And sat down, watched Halloween 1, 2, then 3, and I'm sitting there waiting and wait. I'd never seen it before. I was stoked, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for Michael.
Like, what is going
And
on?
I'm like, what the fuck is happening here?
I did the same
He shows
thing.
up in a commercial.
My mom owned all the Halloween movies on VHS except for part 3, and so I grew up hearing about how Halloween 3 sucked because it didn't have Michael Myers in it. It didn't have anything to do with him.
I never knew.
Then I watched it, and I'm like, this is a great fucking movie. I love it. Especially love the ending. It's just
I didn't get to see it.
fantastic movie.
I saw it in a different light after it came out on VHS. And that in the late 90s was when I finally saw it again. And I'm like, you know what? Let's pull this away from the original series because Michael Myers is barely in it. He's not even part of that world. And if you do that, it's a great movie, and it should have won today. Or yesterday. Anyway, so let's move on back on to Nathan. Let's get that hat together and pick one right out of the hat. Come on, just pick any.
Well, my second one is another nightmare. It's and it's another transformation. It's Freddy coming out of Jesse.
Yeah.
There's no way to deny this one.
Freddy.
No way.
Ray sent me that one as well.
Yeah, I did. That's absolutely one of my favorites. I was watching. So the other day after our show, I decided to watch part 2 again, and then I watched it. I wanted to show my daughter that scene because she loves seeing good effect shots at 6. And we watched that scene, and she's like, "How did they do that?" and man, go ahead, Nate. You take this one away. It's a good.
How did they do that? Okay. Well, the whole thing was Mark Sjostrom's baby. He was the second unit director on that one. He said in the script it just said Freddy comes out of Jesse.
Yeah.
I think. And so he said at that point transformation scenes were kind of cliche because everybody had been doing them since I guess the thing American Wolf in London and Howling and all that. So yeah, they did like they had this whole hand thing. It took like I don't know. I think I wrote down. Hold on. It took 6 operators to do this effect of his hand splitting, liquid coming out of the hand, it opening up, the blades coming out. And Mark, of course, had to have a whole body cast, and it had his chest. And originally he wanted where they had a hole in the wall, and Robert would actually come out with Mark Patton in the shot, and sets a dummy on his shoulder. The face coming out of the chest was an homage to the first movie where he's coming through the wall, which is another great effect scene. I try to stay away from part 1 because part 1 immediately Tina's death because there's not a lot of makeup, but just the whole spinning room and all that's amazing to me. But
yeah, that's phenomenal.
That scene, if anybody wants to bitch about Nightmare 2, because Nightmare 2 gets a lot of shit, if you don't like that scene, geez, I don't know what you want because it's just incredible. And just his Mark's performance in the aftermath of it, where he's seeing Freddy in the mirror and you son of a bitch, you killed him. It's like it's so good. That whole scene.
My favorite thing is when Freddy finally like is full body and he does that little like hat.
Tip of the hat.
Yeah, I love that so much. Plus he's got that. Plus he's got that more crooked nose.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Yeager's makeup, that witchy look, the amber eyes,
It's my favorite.
Yeah, that scene. It's a great one, and it's a shame that people don't give that movie enough credit. That scene alone is arguably one of the top 5 special effects nightmare scenes in the whole series, in my opinion.
That'd be a good list to make, the top effect shots from the Nightmare series, because there are a lot of good ones. Like you said, Tina's death was
even really good for the time period.
Exactly, and even that little scene where Freddy is wrestling with Tina and he has his face ripped off, he cuts his fingers off. There's so many good things going on in that scene. And part 2 does get a lot of issues, and I'm not sure why. I guess because it strays from the story, even though there was really not a overarching story going on until they got to the 3rd movie. But it's a good entry. It's something different. Freddy found a host in Jesse, and maybe he only could go into a host, and that is a male. I don't know.
Well, I think, like, to me, my explanation is that at the end, Nancy takes away his powers, and he's kind of stuck there in that house, like a kind of thing. And he has no power, and he can't get out. So I guess he's a vessel to get to victims because he doesn't have any power. She took it all away from him, and he's kind of trapped there in that house. So he's using Jesse to leave that house too. Yeah, people say it doesn't make any sense, and he's not supposed to come into the real world. We talked about the scene in part 3 where the Freddy skeleton fights Donald and Neil in the real world while they're awake. So
I mean, he kind of comes in the real world in part 1.
Yeah, a phone call. I mean, people say the part 1 is all a dream. It's not real. But when she gets that phone call, apparently, if you're not going on that theory, she's awake. And
I guess I didn't realize how many similarities there are to what Adam Marcus did in Jason Goes to Hell.
Marcus is watching too.
With the vessel. Whoa.
I don't know if Adam's still watching, but hey.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I saw him.
No shit.
Hey, there's some great effects in that movie too. Not to be denied. I think coming up with a list of the top 5 shots would be a great. I think that'd be a great list for that series. Because another one that I thought of while we were talking about Dream Master was, and then you guys start talking about that stunt in Death Proof. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Anyway, I was thinking about Dan on the motorcycle, and that one got ripped apart, but that was a really cool scene and Dream, kind of a lackluster movie, but that scene is really, really cool. I wish they would have been able to release the full cut of that scene rather than. I mean, what we got was still
with the cuts. It's still awesome, man.
Yeah, it is, and he looks so damn cool after it's all done and the shit happening to him. I remember the parts going into his knuckles while he's holding the hand.
Well, that was messed up.
Yeah,
and the part coming towards his cast, and you're like, oh shit.
It's so good though. I think one of the things when people watch these movies, they don't even think about the effects, and sometimes maybe you should look at that and be like, damn, that must have been. Watch the documentaries, if anything. The Never Sleep Again kind of goes into that, and they also talk about what got cut. And you also find out about Yuki, the lady who fell with the Freddy chest, or whatever her name is. I think it was something like that. This is apparently some like 5 foot, 90-pound Asian lady was holding it up while they were pushing through. One person was holding that chest up, and it came tumbling. They actually show it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. How many from Nightmare do you have on your list?
Just one more.
What is it?
Top 10. The Dream Warriors, the TV set.
Oh,
Prime time.
Yes.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
What about Philip? That's another one that
Phillips is amazing too. But,
the puppet strings was the one I think of the most.
That's a great one. It's so hard to watch, but when I think of the ultimate, that the whole TV thing was so unique. How his head comes up and they push the puppet head up and then vacuum all the air out.
It's so great.
The arms coming out and holding her, and
the antenna on his head.
This is it for your big break in TV.
That's a great scene. Well, the thing about Philip that gets me is you get Freddy doing this, and you don't really see what's going on. But then whenever he lifts up, you see the veins come out of his arm. It's like, oh, God, have a nice stroll, asshole. Yeah, I mean, the Freddy movies, I don't think they get the credit for the effects that they have in those movies, really. I mean, people don't think of the Freddy movies as much, I don't think, as an effects movie. I never really did until maybe you have to be more in the horror community. I don't know.
They were always the more creative of the slashers and more imaginary than the effects heavy. I mean, it's not just people getting stabbed and chopped up. It's all kinds of inventive. People getting turned into.
But the story and theme allows for the imagination to run wild.
Yeah. And that's about
it. Chris Hall says Nightmare 2 is the best next to 1. So that's awesome to hear. I'm glad somebody gives it the proper respect. That was the first one I ever saw, and so it'll always be one of my favorites, period. Virginia Buchanan says that she loves that Halloween movie. I'm guessing 3.
Yeah.
Everybody should love that Halloween movie. If you like Halloween 3, give us a thumbs up right now. Let's see how many people like Halloween 3. Anyway, let's move on to Keith Saunders.
Yeah, I don't know why my name is spelled wrong on there, but Yeah, I don't know why it's like that.
I do.
The next one, I tried to pick one like bigger, like more familiar one. So I picked the chest burster from Alien One, just because
That's a good one.
I like how brutal
It's a
and
good
That
like
was
one.
all CG. What are you talking about?
I just like how brutal and like forceful like the chest like pumping up looks.
Well, just think about the part that one person just gets a facial, gets shot right in the face with blood,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then it's a brutal scene for sure.
And plus, I like the whole behind the scenes thing where like they didn't really know the full effect that was going to happen, so they were kind of like freaking out.
And then the best part of that scene though is after it comes out, it starts dancing, saying "Hello, my darling, hello, my
Really.
lady." Wrong movie.
Hello, my ragtime gal.
Check, please.
Which one was
Baby, my heart's on fire.
What's
What
the
movie was that in? Was it
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs.
Yeah. He's like, what did he have? The soup. I don't want the soup.
And then he looks at him like, not again.
Oh no, not
So-
again.
It was John Hurt in it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the same.
I almost picked one from Alien. I almost picked the part where Harry Dean Stanton gets killed because I just love that sequence.
Yeah, that's a good one.
5 minutes long. It just takes its time and
Hmm.
the sound, the Jonesy. I was hearing how they had like a German Shepherd behind the board to get the cat to react that way. And the cat will see the German Shepherd.
This cat has like PTSD.
Phil Leon just showed up. You're not late. We're still going strong. Stay with us. Yeah, that's another series that does have, because even Alien 3 has some good effects too. I think I like Alien 3. Not then. The funny thing about Alien 3 is there are some CG effects in that movie as well. So that's a early CG stuff happening in that movie.
Well, I mean, just the newborn alien in Resurrection is freaking crazy looking, and it's so slimy.
You know what I want to see is more animation instead of CG effects or practical effects as the effect. Like in Batman, at the beginning of the movie, when it shows him move from the side of the building to the other, it's just like a cartoon of. You ever notice that part at the beginning of the Batman?
Yes, that was kind of like what?
Yeah, like why did you?
See, it's animated. It's a shadow. It like a shadow moves. Or something.
Yeah, so I guess shadows are cartoons.
That's Burton.
Yeah. Well, it should have been claymation then, right? All right, Jared, I think you're next. You got one?
Oh yeah. I mean I got a
Oh,
couple. Yeah.
What about
From a
Crabber?
movie most people haven't seen because it's never been released on DVD and just recently released on Blu-ray was Necronomicon Book of the Dead. It's an anthology film for those of you who have never seen it before, based off of H.P. Lovecraft's short stories, and it has Jeffrey Combs as Lovecraft, and it has one of the craziest like face ripping off scenes I've ever seen in my
It's got
life.
so many fun effects.
Like the last 20 minutes of the movie is nothing but effects. And I think Brian Yuzna did the last segment. So I think that was his movie. Who also did Society, so that's not surprising.
Oh, God, that movie. I'm surprised we haven't even mentioned that movie yet. Probably because that movie is a living nightmare. The shunt, the thrill zone.
Yeah, that scene Jared's talking about, like before the head ripping, because H.P. Lovecraft, what is he like in a Buddhist like library or?
Yeah, it's in a library. I think it's in England, but yeah, there's like an Indian guy that like guards the room and has to lock you in just so you can read the book while you're in there. And
Yeah, he like steals the keys and goes in there, and he finds out he's in there, and like every time H.P. Lovecraft like reads the book, there's this giant gate on the wall, and each time he starts reading, like a different door opens, and it lets like the monsters out, but it turns the guy into this like weird slug, and he literally like pulls his entire body through this like gel cell, and like his face slips through it and becomes this monster. And Jeffrey Combs just like grabs his face and like rips it completely backwards. There's just like teeth sticking out. It's really fun.
That's amazing. That's a movie I've been itching to see because that's been not available. But did we have a clip of that before we're gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure that's in there as well.
Yeah, there was one from Necronomicon that he sent me. I could not find a clip of at all. It's like a ginormous like octopus with like one eye.
Mhm.
It's as big as like a giant mansion. Like it's massive.
There's a lot of really cool practical effects. Like Nathan mentioned a couple of those special effects artists. John Carl Beekler worked on it. Screaming Mad George worked on that film. Tom Savini was also like a supporting like supervisor of special effects. Like there's over six. I can't even like tell you who worked on it because there was over 60 different people that worked on this movie.
Yeah.
Just for special effects.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Captain Rhodes' death in Day of the Dead?
Yeah.
Because that's on my list. I mean, that's another effects movie, heavy effects movie with a lot going on, from an arm being chopped off. And
Savini's masterpiece.
yeah, it is Savini's masterpiece, from the makeup to the actual effects. I mean, there's a zombie laying on a table that just spills its guts.
Yep.
And I'm not saying
That was on my list.
Yeah, Nathan sent me that one.
Yeah, that's such a great scene. I was tempted by that, but I was like, I'm gonna pick one from this movie, and one that got, and it's always Rhodes. I mean, there's the one guy, Woolie's from Dawn of the Dead, the big guy with the beard. What the hell's his name?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Where they're down in the
his buddy gets his
Clark,
like
Clark,
puts his, yeah, and pulls his face. That's a great scene, but still Rhodes. Apparently, they used rotten entrails, and he was literally couldn't.
Gagging.
Yeah, he couldn't talk, and he had to yell "choke" on him while he was suffocating because the smell was so bad. And then they pull his whole torso, or the bottom half.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Fuck, man, that's such a. I mean, we saw some of that stuff in Dawn of the Dead, but
Yeah.
I think Captain Rhodes, that scene takes the cake, and it's very pleasing because that dude, he's a prick.
Oh yeah.
Through the
It's
entire.
very,
I didn't
very
think
justified
that was
death.
the obvious one. I thought, oh, somebody's gonna pick that one. But I remember, I guess because you see the other one first when you go into Logan's laboratory and you see him rising, and it goes, oh shit, this is the kind of movie where, whoa, he's coming in with the drill and drills him in the head.
Oh yeah, there's so many scenes in that movie though that you could pick from, and then top it all off, the zombies look absolutely amazing. You know, I mean, who's all working on that movie though? Of course, it's not just Savini.
Well, it's Nicotero's first movie.
Yeah.
Berger was on it. And
Nicotero was Savini's intern.
That was the maybe not the birthplace, but that's probably where K&D really got their start in Day of the Dead, and it's such a spectacle. It's my favorite of the Romero movie, or not my favorite. My favorite's Dawn of the Dead, but I think it's the best because of how bleak everything is, and the effects are out of control good. Plus, they do it arm. They cut a dude's arm off and cauterize it, all basically in what almost is one shot. You know,
that's scary. I think that's the scariest of the Dead films.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's damn near perfection in my opinion, but that's my opinion. I'd love to know everybody else's opinion.
Chris Hall said if we don't mention Dead Alive, we're all dead.
Oh,
Yeah, that was.
Hold your horses.
It was.
Listen, wait.
That was another one I was gonna pick, and someone else did.
Fine, we'll do it now. How about we could talk about the pudding scene or whatever, the custard, whatever that is.
Oh,
We
goodness.
could talk about
The lawnmower
The
scene.
lawnmower scene is what I was gonna pick.
There's many. There's two. That's such a good movie. It's such a out of control. The lawnmower scene is the most iconic.
Been a long time since I've had a good custard.
Oh man.
I mean, just Mama at the end. She's just. I can talk about the demon baby.
Peter Jackson needs to do that again. I swear, like he needs to come back to the horror genre.
Please.
Kick ass to the Horde. Yeah, how could we not mention? And that's on my list. That was one of the clips I sent for our thing, and I was gonna wait towards the end for that. Let's just fucking get into it. Let's talk about Dead Alive and how, first of all, how fucking fucked up that movie was, and how amazing some of the
I remember going into my mom and pop video store. What was one year that come out? 92,
92,
93?
yeah.
Yeah,
92,
early 90s.
93. So I was like 16, 17. I remember there was a standee on the counter that said, "We dare you to rent this movie," or something. And I think it was the official one. I don't know if I've seen that piece of memorabilia before, but I think it was actually what they released, and it said that we dare you to watch this. And I'm like, holy shit!
Challenge accepted.
But yeah, that movie.
My Uncle Bill, he's like he 93, 94. He's like, hey, I got this movie you got to check out. 92 maybe. I'm like, what is he? He's like, it's called Evil Dead. I'm like, whoa, okay, Evil Dead. And so he pops it in, and Dead Alive happened to me because he called it the wrong thing. So, and me not even thinking about it, I thought, and not until the mid to late 90s when I started renting videos at the video store on my own did I know that. So I thought that was Evil Dead for about 5 years, and then I saw it, and I went up to rent Evil Dead. I'm like, this is different, but yeah, that I'll never forget. I walked away for a few minutes and come back to the custard scene and sat there again. I like to say, while it happened to me, watching that scene get first time. I don't think I've ever been grossed out in my life. Chris Hall says that custard scene ruined pudding for him for years. I'm still off pudding since '92, so 20. No,
pudding.
But no, the scene to me that always stands out is that lawnmower scene. I mean, we got to talk about the lawnmower scene at least a little bit here about how he just starts that baby up and just goes to town. I mean, the effects maybe aren't great because they're probably just splattering blood and throwing limbs in the air and stuff behind the lawnmower, but it's still a great scene, that. And then after when it pulls back and you see him holding the lawnmower and just it's blood and body parts everywhere. I mean, it's such a great fucking scene in general. The effects are probably better in the custard scene, but
there's a lot of good effects in that movie, like the
Good
light
movie.
bulb effect with the face.
Yeah.
I saw that movie for the
Oh,
first
man.
time like a couple years ago, and I remember I fell in love with after I watched that movie, and the only thing I could always think of after I watched that movie is like why it isn't bigger than what it is. Like besides like in horror community people knowing about it, like why is it not as big as like Evil Dead? Because
That's a good question.
is it because of when it came out? I don't know.
Why is it not as big as Evil Dead? Let us know in the comments.
Probably, yeah, because of that time period. The horror was kind of in a weird space in the early 90s. And it was,
In Exodus.
I mean, stuff like Cemetery Man was overlooked, and that's,
True.
I feel that movie's
True.
kind of like a Dead Alive.
Yeah. I like that movie as well.
Yeah, so,
Very tongue-in-cheek horror.
yeah, so there's a lot of lost little gems in the 90s.
Like the big bald guy in that movie, I'm the same way with women. When I see a girl I like, I puke on them. So
God.
I kick ass for the Lord.
His uncle, is it his uncle in that movie? The one is like he like wants him to like show him his porn collection or something, and then wants to see the chick that's in the dining room. 'Cause he wants to buy the house from him or take the house from him.
Yeah, it's his uncle.
Is it his uncle?
Yeah,
It's freaking
it's his dad.
ridiculous.
It's his dad's brother.
It's so ridiculous. Because he like brings up a porn about like a donkey, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I wouldn't do what he did for a woman ever. So let's go back. Let's circle back around to Seth before we get too crazy, too off the mark.
Okay.
Are you done, or are you cleaned out?
No, well, one of the ones I sent to Keith was The Fly from the end, but that's disqualified. So the last one I sent him was from the end of Phantasm 2, the death of the tall man.
Oh, yeah.
And they stuck that into him, and all the yellow shit's coming out.
Started oozing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I remember that was on the first issue of Fangoria I ever bought. Was that image of tall man melting? Pretty sure it was.
I didn't expect that to happen either. That part of the movie, because he seemed very powerful, and then
I love how in part 3 though, when it starts off, you see
quickly look at everybody. Look at Keith's face. He looks puzzled.
Does that seem
Not seen
fantastic?
Phantasm 2.
Oh, well, you're in for a treat.
Well, I own them all too.
That's good, 'cause you get to watch
That's a
them this
great
weekend.
movie, man. I love Phantasm too.
Yeah.
Same here.
One of the best effects scenes, in my opinion, in that movie is when Reg gets his head licked. I mean, that is such a great.
What the fuck?
Jesus.
Enjoy that movie. You need to watch homework this weekend, Phantasm, because we're doing next
Yeah.
week, next Monday or Tuesday. What day are we doing next week? Are we going to do Tuesday? Start Tuesdays, or are you going to do Monday still?
I thought we were moving to Thursdays.
2 shows.
Okay.
Anyway, we're doing Phantasm at the top of the week next week. Anybody who's a fan of Phantasm, watch it this week to catch up, to hang out and talk with us, because that's what we're going to talk about next week. What do you got next, Nate?
Well, you talked about The Fly a lot. The guy that did that was Chris Wallace. So I'm picking Gremlins.
Oh, okay.
Which is what he was head of his studio. Talking again, like 40 or 50 people on that team. But the kitchen scene where we first see the nasty gremlins and that the whole scene, the actress, she's amazing. The way it's shot. I mean, the do you hear what I hear? Music starting, and she goes down in there, and then the blender and they said that scene and the heart scene in Temple Doom is why PG-13 exists, because like they're so extreme. But yeah, it's just that scene. I remember seeing that as a kid because I came out when I was 8, and just seeing. It was 84. 84 maybe. And like they, put in the blender. They say when it's in the blender, like the whole set and crew got covered in green shit. And then the microwave scene where she uses the tick and flea spray, gets them in the microwave, turns it on. They said it was kind of like a balloon filled with like extra bits of pieces and goo, and it just, that just the reveal alone of seeing those gremlins for the first time. That super puppet, they said they called it the super puppet, the one that's eating the cookies when you first see it. It's almost so good it looks like it's stop motion. Like, oh, that was one story I hadn't heard, is that Chris suggested they do puppets because originally they were going to do stop motion. And he said, I think you should do puppets, but the studio suggested that they put spider monkeys in suits. And they did that. And they said the spider monkey went ape shit in the office, tore the place up, threw shit everywhere. It just went
as a gremlin would do.
And they just went crazy, and Dante looked over at Chris and goes, "So, puppets."
That's what you're telling me. I need puppets.
It would have been a drastically different movie.
I'm forgetting other notes, but like that, I just think
the scene at the end when
that was my other, like when he melts at the end with the water.
Well, even before the melting, whenever you see when he's trying to get the new gremlins to pop out of the back of his chest, or back of his chest, the back of his spine, or wherever, you could see how the effects on the body of the gremlin itself was really cool. And then then he starts melting. It's
out of any movies like that, of those little critter things, I mean, that still is amazing looking. Everything about that movie.
Critters wasn't amazing.
No, I'm not talking about Critters. I'm talking about the monster, like those type of movies.
They're fun too. Gremlins is a really fun movie. Chris says Gremlins is supposed to be a straight up horror. I think it's a straight up horror comedy, period. But he's supposed to be a straight up horror. I don't know why anybody would ever say it's a not. And that's something we get a lot when we put Gremlins in a bracket. It's not even a
good Christmas movie too.
Great Christmas horror movie. And then Krampus isn't a horror movie.
I'm not a fan of Krampus myself.
But Gremlins is a great horror movie. There's a lot of great effects in that movie. That kitchen scene is so damn good. Billy's mom, boy, she is a trooper. She had to put up with a lot of shit in that scene.
That performance in that scene with her is fully committed to that. There's no schlock or comedy. Like, it's like a hardcore horror attack film in that scene, where just the cinematography, everything about it. And then it's got the payoff with the sword on the wall, or Billy comes running in and gets the one in the tree that attacks her. And then I love the way the scene ends, where Strike busts through the window and Billy looks out of it, and just you hear it like Strike laughing and giggling as he's scurrying away, and you just that shot on Bill looking through the hole in the window, and the Christmas lights and everything. It's just a beautiful looking film, and that the execution of the Gremlins still quite amazing, really.
I would even say there's some great stuff in Gremlins too, as far as effects.
Yeah. Let's think about Gremlins 2 is that Key and Peele sketch. Have y'all seen that?
I don't think I've seen that.
Y'all have to see. Go when the show's over. Go look at Key and Peele's Gremlins 2. It's like the pitch of coming up with Gremlins, and Jordan Peele plays a Hollywood from like Mannequin plays Hollywood type character coming in going
Hollywood Montrose.
Everybody gets a Gremlin. What do you got? Electric Gremlin. Okay, you talking about? it's just like, it's like if you're in the meeting coming up with Gremlins for Gremlins 2
for the pitch. Yeah,
it's so fucking great.
Christopher Lee's in that movie. I'm just saying, Christopher Lee's the best. He's in that one.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So we're back to Keith Saunders.
The other one I actually brought up on our last show, but it's the arm chopping off scene in the Evil Dead remake, which uses the turkey carver.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that movie, not to take away, but how much of that movie is like real effects versus CG, because they did such a really good job. Because there are a lot of moments in that movie that are that one was unexpected and fucking brutal.
Well,
there's definitely some makeup effects that are said definitely CGI.
Well, I know that one particular I actually like looked up, and there's commentary where they're like, there's no special effects in that scene. It's all practical and makeup.
Well, no, because I was gonna mention other scenes in that, like when the girl's got the saw in her mouth.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say the box cutter to the tongue. That
too. I mean, but the when you can hear her sawing her fucking jaw, and then she looks, and that's really cool looking. And then my favorite scene in the whole fucking movie is when Mia takes the chainsaw to the head of that motherfucking thing. You could tell the power.
You can tell that's practical too. That side.
Yeah.
You can tell that's the dummy. And
the way it rags.
She rips her hand off from the car, and the car falls on her hand.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, that's why I'm wondering how much are practical and how much are CG.
Because behind the scenes, she took a video of her getting into that makeup, and they had all those prosthetic parts, her prosthetic hand, severed hand, and all the charts. And so I think a lot of that movie was probably a combination.
Watching the skin rip on that part is hard to do.
Really hard to watch.
You see the skin separating from the rib. You're like, fuck. But yeah, that shot of her, that's stuck in my mind. That's one of my favorite scenes in the last.
Raining blood. I just love it's raining.
Raining blood. Yeah, it's raining blood.
Slayer pumping through the speakers.
That's a fucking cool scene. Again, if you don't like Evil Dead 2013 and you're a horror fan, you're doing it wrong.
The movie's amazing.
It is. It really is. And that scene you're talking about, not even just that. Oh god.
There's so many scenes in that movie, like the nail gun.
Nail gun, yeah. That's the other thing I was just thinking about. Yeah.
James Levy is so incredible.
I just like how brutal that movie is.
I'd like this. I really want to see a sequel with her somehow in the sequel, because she was absolutely amazing in that movie. And if you watch the behind the scenes like you're talking about, she went through hell to film that movie. So Evil Dead is 2013 is great. But how about we jump to Evil Dead 1981? And talk about some of the great effects. I mean, there are a lot of stop motion effects, but the scene with the pencil in the ankle is my favorite scene from that movie. She's just out of nowhere. She starts reading off the cards, and then she just does this and
right. It's a great reveal too. Everything about the way that it's
such a great scene, and that's not the end of the great scenes in that movie. Some of the face makeup was really bad, like Ash's girlfriend Cheryl. Is that her name?
Yeah, Cheryl. No, Cheryl's a sister. Cheryl's a sister. Okay. Linda's a girlfriend.
Yeah, her makeup was awful. But like
performance though, it's so creepy. The Jedi, the way they move is just creepy.
Well, I think that helped the makeup was her performance. So
you can't beat part 2 though.
Part 2. No. First of all, part 2 gave us a wall that just shot blood in Ash's face. For like 3 minutes, I think.
Part 2 is amazing. Henrietta alone is disgusting.
Ted Raimi. Yeah. For a long time, you guys remember Yahoo Messenger except for Keith, right? You know, my Henrietta way setting said, "I'm burying my loving wife Henrietta in the fruits or the root cellar or whatever as my weight status," because Henrietta was such a great character, you know, and there's so many other things going on. His fight with his hand. I mean, it just in general, his dancing with all the laughing animals and
Oh, that's my favorite scene in that movie.
laughing everything. You know, such a great movie. It's probably going to win this part of the bracket. Also, just going to throw that out there. Evil Dead 2, you can't not talk about that.
My favorite horror movie.
Evil Dead 2.
Yeah. It was my first horror movie, and it's probably the one horror movie I've seen the most out of any horror movie.
You have to be in the mood
It's
to
a
watch
great
that.
movie. It should be in my top
I
10.
own that movie like 6 times now, I think.
That's a fun.
That's one of the things that makes every horror fan different. Like you don't know what your favorite is until you see it.
Yep. Evil Dead 2. I always have a problem with Evil Dead 2 and 1, not as in whether or not they're good movies or whether or not I like them, is which one I like better. And I always say, oh, I like Evil Dead 2 better because there's a lot more of the comedy aspect. Some of the effects are a little bit better.
Right.
But then I go back to Evil Dead 1 where it's very kind of
Simplistic.
independent. Yeah. And I really, but the pencil scene in Evil Dead 1 is always my top scene from any of those 3 movies.
But we all
movies.
know Army of Darkness beats them all.
Army of Darkness is the movie of the 90s. Again, that had some great effects and Harryhausen stuff going on in there too.
Listen up, you primitive screwheads.
There's hold on, where did I leave off? Jared, you got anything else?
I do.
You mean you could talk about the Void? We could talk about the Blob.
That was one I was shocked nobody sent me the links to, was the Void, because you guys talk about it so much.
I couldn't find any videos for it. Like
Yeah,
I found pictures of it.
But the Void is a hard sell, in my opinion. That because not many people have seen that movie.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because it's actually a pretty decent movie. I'm being modest. I love that movie.
I was also shocked Ray didn't send me the nipple tearing scene.
Oh, come on.
And if I did have to add one last one, it would have to come from Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh Lord.
Oh wow.
What scene?
Impaled scene.
The impaled scene. Yeah. That's just it's on the cover of the movie. Like it's just iconic for the.
Oh, you're gonna play the video game when that comes out too?
How would you play that game?
I don't know.
I keep reading about it. I'm like, what are the game mechanics? Is this like a first-person game? Like, what kind of game is this?
Do I pick up an acorn or do I kill a squirrel? Like,
do I, unshell a turtle? What are you?
Exactly. Like, there was a lot of animal cruelty in that movie.
I don't like that movie at all. I like Italian movies, and I like Cannibal Ferox, but I did not like that movie. It was just dumb, in my opinion. But that what you're talking about is kind of an iconic thing from that movie. I thought going into the movie, I thought I was going to see that happen, and it was just it was set there as almost a warning, I think, for the natives. I don't like that movie though. I would rather not have a half a tree stuck up my ass about my mouth.
That's fair.
Yeah. I did want to mention the Blob. I didn't send that through because I didn't know what. I guess the best part to talk about with the Blob is the scene in the doctor's office where the guy, the guy's you can see him through the Blob itself. Blob, the remake of the Blob it's another one of those. It's a better remake than the actual original movie, and the effects for the time are really, really good. There are a lot of great effects with the Blob in the restaurant, then into the town. When the old guy gets his arm, it's eating away his arm. It's good stuff. Oh, Phil Leon sent a YouTube. Here's a copy of the video or the effects vid doc for the Void. There you go. It's in the comments.
Cool.
Let me look at the comments real fast, see if there's anything good. Love the demon hands coming out of the bodies. Honorable mention of Dead Snow 1 and 2, fantastic effects, and my two favorite zombie movies. That's from Chris Hall. Gremlins was supposed to be Phil Leon said Rick Baker rocks, effects master, absolutely.
Started out with him.
Yeah. Some of the weaker ones are probably the ones that Campbell worked on. Haha. Yes, Bruce is uncredited makeup effects dude in a lot. Okay. And then Virginia said she had a watch party with Army of Darkness. I'm not a huge fan. I like Army of Darkness, but I'm kind of turned off.
Well, the best thing is just like the beginning with Bruce's, like with Ash's attitude. Just some of his lines like, "Oh, you born in a barn? Shut the door." Oh, they weren't born in a barn. Just Jack and shit. So
yeah. You're not in control of Jack or shit.
That's the thing about that movie for me is a lot of the one-liners, or the fight with the pit witch is really great.
Yes.
The scene where he's getting the book and he's trying to open them, I can't remember the words. There's a lot of great moments. There's a lot of great stuff in that movie, but it's just that I'm turned off right now.
It's just pillow talk, baby.
Exactly, that's why I'm turned off. Another movie that we could mention is Beetlejuice. Had some good effects.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody would have thought of that. That's one that I asked recently. Is it a horror? Do you have it in your horror collection? Do you guys throw that in the horror section, or do you throw that in the comedy section? That's a good question.
I mean, I would say if you have Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland in your horror section, I don't see why Beetlejuice wouldn't be.
Okay. On that same token, would Predator be in your horror section?
Well, that was one of my 10. I've always questioned that, like, is Predator a horror film? Because to me, I remember watching it when it came out, 87, and that's one of those movies I vividly remember watching it. I remember where I was, who I was with, and I remember just that the pick I was doing is not. I mean, of course, Stan Winston's creature is the effect.
Well, considering the first one looked like crap. Did you ever see
the first one looked like crap, and then they hired Stan. And of course, like, they got James Cameron threw a little bit in there, but
yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme in the suit at first.
But like the Predator, I just remember. Well, I remember, of course, the skinned bodies, Hopper and all that in the beginning was shocking as a kid to see those bodies hanging there. But I just remember the anticipation of seeing what this fucking thing looked like. The whole movie. What is this thing? Because it's like a slasher film. I mean, it really is. You can pick them off and one by one. But when Dutch is being chased by it, gets in the mud and it's in there in the trees, the mud, and the thing lands and starts walking, it's so tense. And then when he finally materializes, you see it. It's like, holy shit. Because I don't remember seeing that until I saw the movie. Like, I don't remember him being in the trailer or the creature or whatever at all. It was all about Schwarzenegger on the posters and everything. And so I had no idea what this thing looked like. And I remember when he revealed in that scene, it was just like, wow. And then you get the second reveal where he takes the helmet off and you see the face on that thing.
Looks like a vagina.
I mean, next to the Xenomorph, does it get any better than the Predator alien?
Okay, so no, and the Predator, and I'm glad they put them against each other. Let me put it this way: if you want to think about the Predator as a horror movie, think about Friday the 13th. Okay, there's people being systematically killed off. You don't see who the killer is until towards the end, and then you find out who the killer is, and then you got a person fighting back. Predator is the jungle alien version of Friday the 13th. Just gonna throw that out there. No?
Chris says that the characters have to be powerless against the monster, but they are powerless. They're outmatched by this thing. They can't see it. Yeah. They don't know where it's at. I mean, they are powerless. I mean, he has to resort to, primitive skills to beat this thing. He kills all of them. These are macho, badass men, and he takes them out. Like, they don't even bother.
That's why. No, yeah. I mean, think about it. He builds all these different traps. He coats himself in mud to cool his body temperature, so he can't see that. I mean, he uses, just like Return of the Jedi. They use the primitives to stop the Empire, and that's the same thing Arnold, I think it is. I think it is a horror movie. I thought that for a long time until somebody brought up it was like a slasher movie, and I started thinking about it in the vein.
Terminator is a slasher.
Terminator is very much the same thing, except for something about Terminator I can't put in the horror collection. It's probably because of the rest of the series, honestly.
See, the first one I could see being a horror movie.
Yeah, but I can't separate them. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, see, that's my problem with like Alien and Aliens. Like, I see Alien as a straight up horror movie, and Aliens for me, like, I see it as way more of an action flick. Even
Yeah,
though it
it
does
is.
have a lot of horror elements, but James
Sure.
Cameron's just like, we're gonna make it guns blazing. And it's like
It is,
nothing like
but
the first movie.
There's a machine gun. It's not horror, I guess, unless it's a zombie movie.
It's like Alien 3 kind of returned to a more horror type movie. Alien 3 gets shit on pretty rough, and I understand why expectations and stuff like that after the end of 2. But I like Alien 3 as it does kind of play off as another horror movie. And
I like
that's why Alien is in my horror section as well, next to Predator. You have
Yeah.
to be AVP and AVP2 and
Yeah,
the collection.
they're all in my horror section. So
Terminator, I could see it as a slasher for sure because he's basically is a early '80s slasher running around trying to find this one person and killing everybody in his path to get to Sarah Connor. And then there's a great chase at the end of the movie where just like any number of '80s slashers, it plays off. It's just a robot that's sent from the future. But for some reason, because the rest of the movies really fall away from the horror type genre and become more.
Yeah, after part 2, they get a little more sci-fi action, even more so. Than, there's still some horror elements to part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Even add comedy into part 2, because let's not forget that when he tries to smile for the first time. Does he call somebody a dickweed or something like that, or?
I think so.
That scene where the two muscle bound guys, is this guy bothering you? Anyway, Terminator 2 is a great movie. But what else do we got? Anybody got anything else? Nate, what else do you have on your list?
Yeah, I have 3 more. My next one is the Drifter Suicide in the Texas Chainsaw remake. I know you don't like that movie.
No, that's a great scene, especially the way it's shot.
Laura German's performance alone, but yeah, that shot, that whole gimmick shot of what it took to pull that off, because I was like, whoa, because I mean they had to cut a top of the ceiling off of the van to have the crane go in there, and then they had they used the camera that they use for anal exams. It's a long 18-inch, about that big around, like a silver dollar, and they had like a fake dummy head on it, like skewered onto the camera lens and on a crane hanging from above, and they pulled it out. And it took them like 15 tries to get it right. So then it comes and the dummy stops and the head falls back, and then the window and the roof were replaced digitally. Other than that, everything else was practical in that shot. And I just think like they did that 15 times. Those actors, man, they must have just wore themselves out. It's like they're having that reaction 15 times. But also the whole thing with Laura shooting herself, they had like a blowgun into her mouth, or her cheeks puff out as she pulls the trigger. And they, it's just such an effective, it comes out of nowhere. And I know that the writer said that like they knew they couldn't top Ed Neal. You can't recast Ed Neal. You can't do that. So what do we do? And I don't know. That scene just, I remember like, wow, I was not expecting it. And
I like that they thought about the gases expanding on the cheeks.
Yeah.
They did replace Ed Neal with Bill Moseley.
Well, trying to recreate that hitchhiker scene with another crazy member of the family kind of thing.
So to kind of touch on that, my favorite scene, the original is one of my favorites. The original scene with the hitchhiker is one of the best scenes of any movie, in my opinion. And they totally changed that, but they did make up with it with that shot. But that wasn't enough for me. I'm greedy and selfish when it comes to movies, but that is a great shot that I never even think about. Probably the best part of that entire movie, honestly. Although the scene where Leatherface chops off the dude's leg is pretty good too, and unexpected. That movie's a D for me. But that's a good scene. What else you got?
Well, the next one is One Shot. It's just to me if how effective and how minimal an effect can be to have an impact. Because I did this on my Christmas short in volumes 2, and it's for Misery. It's the hobbling scene. The Howard Berger built those feet and legs, but it's like it's one shot. You see one ankle go. The rest of it's all performance. And it's like, to me, like in the book originally, she chops his feet off with the axe. Like they come off. And some people said that's worse. I was like, I don't know, because to me, what is effective about the sledgehammer just breaking the ankles is that a lot of us know what it's like to break or I broke my ankle, I've twisted my ankle playing basketball, things like that. I know what that feels like. And I almost had it happen yesterday. I was coming off a ladder and there was a hole and it just the image in my head of me, I didn't do it, but I can remember what it feels like. And it fucked me up. Just like I had trouble sleeping just thinking about it. And oh man, that could have happened to you again. Like it's just so effective. And it's that one thing. It's just that one shot.
It's real quick.
It's quick, and like I think to me,
how many times have we seen a limb chopped off? Also, Yeah,
I mean, it's been overdone, but like to see something go the wrong way, kind of like what you're talking about the cop in part 6 where he gets bent backwards.
Yeah,
that's a little more extreme, but like we know what could happen if our foot goes the wrong way or our leg goes. You've seen football injuries where someone's leg goes the wrong way or something like, oh shit. So it's like it's one of those things where that's not supposed to happen, and but also just the use of just one shot. That's simple. Like I used it in my film where the actress is bashing this girl's head in. You don't see her, but it's all on her performance, and I give you one little shot of the hit and the face and the skull, and you see the exposed skull and the skin and everything, and that's it. And Drive was another one that did that, and when he's stomping that guy's head in the elevator. It's all Ryan Gosling's performance, and you get that one shot where you see him stomp and the head caves in, and that's all you needed. You don't even see anything else. You don't see their aftermath or anything. So to me, when violence comes that quick, that minimal, it's to me more effective than it's just lingering on the screen for a long, long, long time.
Yeah,
ever hit.
I like it when kills or attacks just pop, like they're just there.
Well, it's kind of like the difference between Seven and Saw. Saw showed you everything. Seven suggested or showed you things to let your mind connect the dots, which is always better in filmmaking. But like Seven bothers me more than Saw does because of that, because it's letting my imagination fill in the gaps.
You don't ever see the head in the box, but you know it's there.
Yeah,
and that fucks you up.
What's in the box?
Well, just like the guy, the girl, the prostitute, or the guy. Like she's out of focus in the background, and the guy is screaming, and it's his performance selling it, and they show a Polaroid of what he had on him, that dildo with the knife on it, or whatever the hell it was, and it's like you're able to connect the dots without actually seeing anything happen. And my last one is it's a simple one too. It's Dawn of the Dead, the helicopter.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
How do we miss that?
That's my favorite kill of that movie.
Yeah, because it's so. Of course, he looks goofy. He's got like 2 inches on his head, but the whole simplicity of it. I remember when I saw that movie. That movie's got so many things. The guy's head blowing up with the shotgun in the beginning. That movie's got so much going on, but it was that shot where I remember watching the movie the first time. I went, oh wow! I can just see that fly off. It's just a great gimmick. It's just a great fun gimmick thing.
It is.
Yeah, it's just fun. And then like again, early CG, like they had to animate the blades in and all that. So hey, it's early CG. That was cool.
Yeah, but you can. I love kind of like what you were said. The way they just did that effect, and they just tie a rope or string on it.
They had the fishing wire, and Tom Savini handed the guy and said, "Just run."
Yeah.
He just runs and it comes off. And there's 2 guys behind the crates with blood pumping the blood out when it comes off.
Such a good scene. And Dawn of the Dead is another one that's just filled with good scenes. I mean, they're kind of far apart, but they're all you get a great payoff at the end with a bunch of good scenes. One that always stuck out for me was the cleaver to the head, and that was just a scene, a shot in reverse, basically. And there's not much to that one.
Chris Hall brought up something that kind of plays into. He brought up the head and the railing in High Tension. High Tension
Oh my god!
my top favorite four films. But the thing is, when
Oh,
I saw
God, yeah.
when I saw Hot Tension the first time, it was a Korean bootleg. It was before it came out over here, like a couple of years before, and I didn't know it was edited. But when I saw that scene, they don't show the head coming off. They cut right before it hits. So going back to the Misery thing, in my mind, I saw his neck break.
Just
And
like
that was
the book in Texas Chainsaw.
And that, yeah, again, the idea of his head being pushed that way and the neck breaking, even though I don't see it, my mind told me what I think is going to happen, and it fucked me up. But when I saw it in the uncut version, and later, years later, when it came out over here, and the head comes popping off and the blood's geysering out, it's like it lost something there to me. It was more effective to me when you don't see the head pop off.
I think I agree with that. Especially when you get the chance, just like Texas Chainsaw and the second foot in the Misery, you kind of leave that to your imagination, and sometimes your imagination is probably worse than what actually could might happen. And again, I've seen High Tension, and then watching it again, or Texas Chainsaw, and the flying creature thing at the end of Hellraiser, you think you see it fly away, or you think you see the hook go in the back, but you don't, because the way it's set up, it makes you think that way. Scene I thought was good was in the remake of The Grudge, when she is in the kitchen chopping off her fingers like carrots and laughing. Is that in the Sarah Michelle Gellar Grudge or the newest one?
The brand new one.
Okay, I haven't seen that
seen
one.
it either.
And I haven't seen the Sarah Michelle Gellar remake since it came out, when I bought the DVD blind buy and hated it. I would like to watch. I'd like to revisit it, but I remember really not liking the remake, and I've heard bad things about this one. So, anybody seen the new Grudge?
I have not.
No, sir.
I pre-ordered Invisible Man today, though.
What's that?
Pre-ordered Invisible Man today, though.
It's a good movie. All right. So, Seth, do you have any other effects shots that you want to talk about?
Nothing that's really coming to mind. I know my girlfriend commented here, and I'm surprised that she hates this movie, but she mentions the dick transformation from Wolf Cop. I have to turn my head during that scene.
I love Wolf Cop.
I loathe Wolf Cop.
I know you do.
It's dumb.
It's so fun.
It's dumb. I have a limitation on dumb movies, and that one, no.
It's not that dumb. I mean, it's a little dumb, but it's not that dumb.
Let's rewatch it and really kind of let it sink in how dumb it is.
I think I've seen it like 3 times, 4
It's
times.
fun. I enjoy it.
The only time, I watched it once, and I was like, I'll never watch that again.
And then
Joe
Joe
Bob had to watch it. I'm like, I guess I'll watch it with Joe Bob, and I'm like, yep, never watching that again. And I almost bought them because everybody likes this movie for some reason. Let me find out why. And I never got around to doing it. And then I watched it again. And I'm like, okay, I'll never like this movie. It's just stupid and doesn't do what I want it to do.
I love his car.
I bet you do.
I like the scene where he rips off the guy's face in the meth lab.
I gotta say, there's something about face rips that I love. I love seeing a good face off. There were Less Dumb Than Bubba, the redneck werewolf. I've never seen that before. Didn't know it existed, but I'll definitely look for it.
I haven't watched it yet, though.
There's a question from Phil that says, do you disqualify?
Uh-oh.
I think he froze.
Ray still is frozen.
He said
Uh-oh.
he's talking about disqualifying
I
something.
think I know what comment he was reading.
Yeah.
If you can find it, go ahead.
That's what I'm trying to do.
It was something about like that a Predator thing and action and sci-fi, and I mean, yeah, there's genres where they're genre bending, and you can go like you can't define it as yeah, there are movies that are just pure horror. They were made for horror fans, pure horror, but I don't just qualify. A lot of people like won't accept comedy horror. They won't accept Shaun of the Dead as a horror film. They won't accept Gremlins as a horror film. They won't. But to me, they're horror. It's like, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't need to label them. Like, is Silence of the Lambs a horror or is it a thriller? Who gives a shit? Is Jaws an adventure or horror? If there's horror in there, then it should be accepted. If Jaws is on Fangoria magazine, which it has been, if Predator's been on the cover, like if horror people are covering it, I mean, Alien is a science fiction film, but it's scary as shit. It's probably one of the scariest films I've ever seen. Easy. And it's a thriller. It's a horror film. It's a science fiction film. So to me, Predator, does horror jump to mind right away? No. Does science fiction jump right away? No. Does action jump away? It's all of it. I think it's got all three of those elements in it. I mean, we see macho guys with machine guns, but Day of the Dead has macho guys with machine guns who can, I mean, so where's the line?
True.
You got skinned people, heads and spines being ripped out, Jesse Ventura. I mean, it's okay. Violent.
Jesse Ventura.
That sucker's dug in like an Alabama tick.
I'm going to have to watch Predator when I get off here now, damn it.
I ain't got time to bleed.
How long did it take you guys to start talking after I froze?
We just went off. We knew what comment you were trying to read, so we went off that.
I mean, I did a podcast episode. Somebody invited. It was a great one. It's called Scream Addicts. He doesn't do it anymore, but he would invite people in the industry to come on and pick their favorite horror movie, and we would talk about a horror movie for like an hour and a half. And everybody had picked but someone had picked No Country for Old Men, which is one of my favorite movies, which is one of those. Is it a horror? Is it not? But he's a lot like the Terminator or whatever. He's an unstoppable killing machine. It seems supernatural. Doesn't seem. Is he human? Is he death? Is he representation of death? What is he? And I picked Taxi Driver. I said, Taxi Driver can be seen as a horror film. Scorsese shot it. He said he shot it like a gothic horror film. If you look at Maniac, if you look at, there's a lot of horror films that look like Taxi Driver, feel like Taxi Driver.
That's true.
Travis Bickle is a horrific character who does murder people, who is, could easily, he's a horrifying figure.
I almost chose No Country for Old Men for a shot, but I actually didn't know if it was practical or computer generated. The blow gun or what was it that he used?
Yeah, that's digital. That's
I thought it was, but I wasn't sure, so I just left it out.
The cattle prod gun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool scene though.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have any more?
Strangling the cop in the beginning with the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the best parts about that, I finally saw that 2-3 weeks ago. By the way, remember I told you I hadn't seen it, and you were like, "Oh, $10 or $7 or whatever it is a pretty good deal for Academy Award winner." I gotta say, I really, really enjoyed the movie. Javier Bardem's character is one of the most terrifying human beings ever on screen, in my opinion. Even with the horror, I don't know if I'd put it in horror as a horror movie, but he is a terrifying human being, and I think part of it is because of the ending, and when he gets in the car accident and he has a bone showing and stuff, that really humanizes him quite a bit. But
that's what I love. Like with the writer, Ethan wrote. Well, Ethan and Joe write it, but Ethan was talking about that scene. He goes, because in that scene, you're like, is he supernatural? Is he mythic? Is there something? Because he murders, when he murders Kelly McDonald, and you don't see it, but because he checks his boots. He's murdered. Yeah. And he goes, so he's just done this supernatural, like this whole, is he death? Is he supernatural? And then he goes, then he just gets in a car accident like any other asshole would. Because that's what he loves about it. When he gets hit by the car, it's like, oh, so maybe he is just like the rest of us. in a shitty car accident.
Chris Hall asked why we haven't talked about Glenn's death in Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean,
what?
I don't know. We didn't really talk about anything from.
Because we're an anti-Johnny Depp channel.
Well, Nightmare is my favorite horror film.
I mean, we're gonna do. I think we're gonna do it. Okay, we're gonna do a show where we do a Friday the 13th favorite effect shots. Nightmare on Elm Street. That shot. We were talking. I wanted to mention that before when we were talking about Freddy in the real world. It's like that shot's not realistic at all. Yeah, if you think about it, like how is that part of the real world where there's a big hole in his bed and blood shooting out of the ceiling? That is definitely a nightmare scene, but happens in the real world. Like, and again, it's the same thing with Tina. How is she being dragged around in the real world? You know, anyway, that is a great scene. I wish they would have left the part where his body comes
back out.
And falls down. So I think that would have been great, but there's no way his body could have lost that much blood and still been intact.
That was a lot of blood.
Yeah. Corners in the John Pukin since he's seen it. So
you don't need that, you need a mop.
Yeah. That is a great scene. I mean, I can't. I wish again. There's like I got a bunch of movies I'd love to see for the first time again, and that's one of them because I don't remember what I thought when that scene happened. And there was a part in time where I thought that was poop. I'm not gonna lie. Then it was all because Nancy called Freddy shit at the end of the movie. She's like, "You're nothing. You're shit." I'm like, "Is he literally poop?"
Uh-oh. Hey guys, my electric is flickering, so just a warning.
Are we off?
No. My electric is flickering though.
I saw
West Virginia. Are we still live?
Yeah, we're live. I'm just saying in case. For the
Okay.
viewers, we might randomly disappear.
We're not going to randomly disappear. Let's just wrap this up. We'll randomly disappear while he hits the breaker. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, I had two others I was going to bring up that were like in my top. Reagan and The Exorcist scared the shit out of me. The head spinning scene is, Dick Smith, man, the guy's a legend. So you got to give it up to him. And this one was just one of those shocking things. Drew Barrymore hanging with her guts hanging out in Scream. Not only was I not expecting her to die in that movie, but to see her that way, like not just dead, but hanging from a tree with her guts hanging and spilling out.
Well, that was their idea when they put her on the poster.
Yeah,
they wanted everybody to think.
Psycho.
Yeah,
Janet Leigh style.
That Janet Leigh thing, and the damage that was done to her. You did that to Drew Barrymore, man.
We didn't even get to see that in its full effect too, because the MPAA had a fit about it, so they had to keep chopping it down.
And I wonder why that's still not been released. I remember in '97, them like you could rent the unrated version. I remember renting it and watching it.
Really, I didn't know that was out there.
Yeah, because I remember watching. I have it on VHS somewhere because I recorded it. Because it's like I remember like Stu and Billy cutting each other up really bad. I mean, it's like violent. It goes on and on. And I remember Steve's guts pouring out on the floor. He cuts him in the beginning. And yeah, that shot where he zooms in on Drew, they had to cut every other frame. They cut it 50%. That's why it looks so.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the VHS as well.
But is it I was checking out my Blu-ray, this dumb set, but whoever released this, let's get that out. I'd love to see that uncut version of Scream. Scream, I watched that one.
Well, it'd be Dimension. So,
you still flickering? You good?
I'm good now.
All right, Keith Saunders.
Yeah, I have that VHS. I think wasn't those the ones that had like the character covers? They had like 3 or 4. They had one with like Drew Barrymore.
I had them on a blank tape, but I rented it. It was on demand, and I rented it like '97, and I just copied off the TV, watching it.
There's not much for effects in Scream, although the scene with oh Christ, what's her name?
That was Kirkman.
Tatum.
Bob Kirkman.
Yeah, the Tatum's death scene was pretty awesome with the garage door.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and the visual effects on her nipples were fantastic as well. Oh no, that was Rose. Uh,
Stupendous.
she's something else, man.
Chris Hall.
Anyway,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Say Chris Hall mentioned Final Destination, or were those all digital? I'm pretty sure a lot of those were all digital.
I don't know. The bathtub strangling scene is pretty fucking brutal, and I don't think that's digital.
Yeah, I mean there might be some that's not, but I think like majority.
Well, I know
Of
the
them.
scene like in the second movie where Rory gets cut in half by barbed wire. That's digital.
A lot of the fast action death scenes are definitely digital.
Yeah, the face smash with the log in the second one's. I think most of the second movie's deaths are digital.
Yeah, I watched one about. Is it number? Which one has the logs on the highway coming off the truck? Is that 2? Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched an effects video with the guy who did that one, and he was like trying to make it realistic as possible, but the director was like, "Yeah, but it's not like flashy," and I'm like, "Well, it needs to be realistic." So like he did like a absurd version in this like visual effects and like a realistic, and they just went in the middle somewhere, and that's why like the logs bounce like they're made of like an air
Rubber?
mattress. Yeah, they
Yeah.
just bounce off the road.
Yeah, that wood doesn't really bounce that like that, but
No.
there's some good kills in that movie for sure, though. Do we have any other effects movies we want to talk about, or should I? I asked our followers a question about who's their favorite Dream Warrior. Do we want to do that real fast?
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's go through and ask the people who are watching now. Who is your favorite Dream Warrior from Freddy's A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors? Well, here, Keith, who's your favorite?
I would probably say Kincaid.
Okay, Seth.
Kincaid.
All right, Jared. I already know Nate's.
I mean, I like the badass bitch, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of it, it's always Kincaid.
It's got to be Kincaid.
Her line makes me cringe every time.
Which
she says
one?
it.
I'm Beautiful and Bad.
I'm
Yeah,
beautiful
she's like,
and
"Oh,
bad."
bad." I fucking hate it.
All right, I like that scene, that part, her saying that. I mean, doesn't have much of much self-esteem, so saying that.
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean, it's not the lines. I guess it's like how it's delivered. Like it's kind of cheesy. I guess.
yeah, I guess so. I
I
think
love that scene though because I like the "let's get high."
Yeah, she's definitely really really cool looking character. But Kincaid is the best, right, Nate? I mean,
He's just fun.
I when I met Ken, I asked him. He's like, "You want me to put a line on this?" I'm like, "Yeah." Can you just put Kruger pussy? He's like, "You really want that? You want pussy on your autograph?" Like, yeah, I do. Are you sure? I'm like, "Yeah, I do. That's the best line." And so the picture I got is it's him saying, you can see he's still mouthing the word pussy. I'm like, "You got to put it on there. Come on." He's like, "Okay." He felt weird about doing that. But looking through the comments, it's Kincaid. But Chris Hall, or one of our people watching, says Philip. I mean, the ability to rip your tendons out and marionette across the floor is just cool, and that is cool. Seth says, "Sit down, Kincaid. Fuck you. You sit down." Wait, how can it not be Kincaid with lines like that? Fuck you. You sit down.
Man, that's still one of my favorites. Great. Now it's my dick that's killing me.
Yeah. I mean, he can have the best lines and constantly being thrown in the quiet.
Cool breeze.
Get it right, cool breeze.
I mean, I do like the wizard, but I think it's mostly just because of the wheelchair scene. I love that wheelchair.
Yeah, that's a good scene. Well, I mean, I think for the most part, all the Dream Warriors have great deaths. If you think about it, I mean, every single one of them. Jennifer, the TV. Joey's almost death was really good with the because he's the ladies guy with a little teardrop tattoo. Terrence had. I mean, they're all great, iconic scene. I mean, if you did a top 10 kill list for Freddy, I'm sure most of them, a lot of them would be
Did you ever read the scripts, part 3 scripts that Craven wrote?
Yeah.
No, I can't. Did you?
Because
Break it down.
I did a panel. I did a panel with Ken and Rodney a few years ago, and they had never read it. And I told Ken, I was like, "Do you know how Kincaid died in Dream Warriors?" He goes, "I died." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know how?" He said, "No." So I told him, and for those who don't know, it's like they're trying to escape the dream world, and he gets caught in between the dream world and reality.
Oh shit!
Like halfway in a wall. And he's like, he's coming for me. He's coming for me. And they're trying to pull Kincaid through the wall. And Freddy's coming on there in. And Freddy puts his claw in the Kincaid. And he's like dying as he's reaching. And the claw and the hand comes out of Kincaid's screaming mouth.
Oh, that would have been badass.
That would have been a cool movie. I think it was way too expensive to make, wasn't it?
Probably just not like they probably realized people liked Kincaid and probably wanted to keep him around. Or I don't know. I mean, Frank and them totally. What's that?
From what I remember correctly, from Never Sleep Again, they said it was like a little too dark.
Yeah.
The fucking script that Craven turned in was really dark.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, there's one line where you could tell Wes was trying to keep Freddy as that vile, awful person. Because there's one line he's calling some of the women cunts and stuff. And he tells Kincaid, your little asshole is mine. I mean, it's like real perverted stuff here, and it's the Freddy that I think Craven saw originally, but they totally went the other way with him.
Which is what some people want.
And Neil was kind of a creep too.
Yeah. He was a creep anyway, in my opinion.
More so in the original script.
I mean, Nancy is what, 23, 24, and he's in his early 40s probably. Ugh. All right. So anyway, there's a few people. Leslie Stauffer says Harris says Taryn. Somebody John Young says my favorite. So the question was, who's your favorite? He says my favorite. Okay. Antonia M. C says Nancy, the original and still the best warrior. That's good. I agree. She's great, but Kincaid just steals the show in my opinion as far as the Dream Warriors go. Eric Longlois says, welcome to Prime Time, Jennifer. We've got another one for Taryn. This guy lists everybody. Taryn. I think it's a kind of a toss-up between Taryn and Kincaid, really. Nobody says Joey.
I was about to say, I know my fiance says Joey.
Oh, Kristen Parker. Oh.
Nobody
says Kristen.
No Kristen, no Kincaid. We got a couple for Jennifer. We got David Slight says, I met Jennifer Rubin, Dream Warrior last year. She was amazing, yeah. Okay, here we go. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is far and away the best of the bunch. The youngins, Larry F. and P. Arquette. That's Lawrence Fishburne and Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette. Yeah.
It's funny and scary. What more do you want? To know who your favorite Dream Warrior is. That's what more. That's
question.
Bobby Puglisi. I'm sorry if I butcher names. I remember on Never Sleep Again documentary, Jennifer Rubin talking about how all the guys are crushing on Patricia Arquette and no one was interested in her. I was thinking, you fools.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, she was beautiful and bad. And then somebody, Chris Sean Sitwell says, Freddie. Okay.
The picture I saw that Nate took with the entire cast, she looks like she's holding up pretty good.
Yeah, I saw her in 2018. I mean, they're all holding up pretty good. Most of the African ladies look pretty good.
She's fun. When I did, sorry, I keep talking about these panels, but I was at a show and they were up in the green room. It was Jennifer and Bradley Gregg who played Philip and Ira who played Will. And they were up in the green room drinking with the rest of the celebs. And I was in a Freddy costume and the promoter like, go up there and get him. So I went up there and got him. And Jennifer actually fought with me it's like a Dream Warrior. As I said, didn't I kill you already?
Didn't she whip out some knives?
And then she said that Bradley and Ira were a bunch of pussies. They wouldn't fight me. But she was fun. She was a fun girl.
My niece got to meet her, which was her favorite. My niece at the time was 9, I want to say, and got to meet Taryn and Nancy, which are her two favorites. I asked Reynolds. He said Nancy was his favorite. It's a good question, and if there's a question you guys have for me to ask our people to read on air, let me know. We'll do this again because I like finding out. I love asking people questions and seeing how different everyone's answers are, even though Kincaid seems to be the clear-cut favorite here.
I have a question. If NECA were to put out a set, they wouldn't be able to do all of them, but say they got 4 Dream Warriors in a set. I mean, it's
Don't do
obvious.
this to me, Nathan.
To me, I mean, it's Kincaid, Nancy, Kristen, and Taryn. That would be. I would
Now,
love to have that
now
set.
here's the question: do they give them in their regular outfits or in their dream outfits?
It's got to be in the dream. I mean, if they do the dream though, we got to have Will, man. We got to have that wizard costume.
Well, it's got to be
Exactly.
and it's got to be the dream outfit because Kincaid's red wife beater. Come on.
Yeah, we got to see that. And Taryn in her.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want
We don't need
Taryn
her.
in her.
We don't need our Dawkins T-shirt.
I think that'd be a great set to have. I would definitely buy it, but I think it'll be a cold day in hell before Patricia Arquette lends her likeness to an ACA. Unfortunately, because she wouldn't even be in the fourth movie, right?
Well, that was because wasn't that because she was
An Arquette.
I'm
Oh,
thinking of the wrong people.
who knows? I was fine with Tuesday Night.
Yeah, it wasn't. But wasn't she not in the next one because she was pregnant?
There's a lot of things. Yeah, I think she either she was pregnant. She had to have a baby like shortly after in like 88, 89. But
I did not know that.
I think there was things she just did. She wanted to move on. She didn't want to do horror films. I think I don't think that was her thing.
And she didn't
That's
have
fine,
really a
she-
good time with Chuck Russell either, right?
Oh, well, he wasn't
Yeah.
coming back for the next one.
No, I know, but just,
Nobody likes Chuck Russell.
just her experience working on that one could have.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
remember people saying like he didn't know how to. He was not kind of pleasant with the cast or.
Heard
Didn't know how
that
to
too.
talk to actors.
He looks like
Wasn't a
dick.
great
I'll just say that.
experience.
I'll just say that right out loud. He looks like a dick. Anyway, that's our Horror Syndicate follower question of the show. Again, if you have any questions you want me to ask our followers, see what they say, let me know in the comments, and I'll ignore you and come up with my own. So anyway, let's go ahead and get some final thoughts. We did not talk about The Thing or The Fly too in depth because they are The Thing especially is just a masterpiece. Great transformation scenes, great scenes overall. Just about everything in that movie. It's the best horror movie in my opinion of all time. But let's do final thoughts. Seth, do you have any final thoughts on effects?
No, I love practical effects over CG. I don't hate CG. It works well in small doses. It works well when they need to use it, but sometimes they rely on it a little too heavy. And it's like someone mentioned in the comments in our last show, you notice it when it's bad. You don't notice it when it's good. And I was kind of thinking about, the Wolfman remake, how people think of all the bad stuff from the transformation, but you don't think about, even though it's not CG, but no one really talks about how great Rick Baker's makeup effects are in that movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they look at superficial things, and I think we need to see a new batch of werewolf movies with great transformation. I wonder if some of it is time constraints or laziness or just, I don't know. Keith, do you have any final thoughts on practical effects?
I want more practical effects.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, the only people really using them is James Wan. I mean, he does use CG, but he
JJ does a lot of stuff too. JJ Abrams.
Well, I meant in horror.
Well, you know what? His favorite movie is
There's quite a
Phantasm.
few
How
people
about that?
doing it. There's still.
Just throwing that out there for you. Did you know that? His favorite movie? Phantasm, J.J. Abrams. Come on.
Yeah.
Captain Phasma was named after Phantasm. he helped restore that movie to the glory it is today. Anyway, Jared, any final thoughts?
I mean, just to kind of piggyback what you guys were already saying. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have more practical effects in your guys' movies. I mean, it's an art form. It's a labor of love, and 2017's The Void showed me that you could actually make a movie with a decent, lower budget and still make it scary as fuck and have a good practical effects system.
There are three great scenes in that movie, and one's early on, and one is kind of in the middle, and one is at the very end of the movie is effects heavy, and it's so good. And The Void, is it on Netflix? It's on Shudder or Netflix or something. It's somewhere. Go buy it. Come on. It's $15.
Physical.
It's a great movie. Yeah, buy the physical copy. It's a fantastic movie, and you won't be disappointed. I don't think. Anyway, sorry. Come on, buy a movie.
Come on.
Come on, guy.
So, Nate, any final words on practical effects?
I mean, I as a filmmaker, I want everything in camera as much as possible.
Yeah.
But like even with my artwork's practical, but I'm going to use Photoshop at some point in the final process to tighten it up, to fix it. And that's what's cool about it is like with the advancements we have, we can use it for that purpose to make something more exciting. Even if it's something like, say Zodiac and, David Fincher's looking at this shot and saying, hey, I would like something in the foreground to create a little more depth. So they throw in digital grass in the thing. Like nobody knows that grass is digital because it's there, but it's like those little things are like an artist has a palette now that you can do almost anything. But if you could get it on the day, most of it, 90% of it, 95% of it, and then just kind of enhance and tweak, play with color, play with, or just like the Texas Chainsaw thing where the only way they get that shot was they had the crane, they had to cut the roof, had a line in the roof. They digitally replaced that. Well, no one's looking at that roof going, oh, cheap ass. Like, no one's noticed about that. But it was.
Your eyes aren't drawn to that. Your eyes are drawn
able to do a shot that they would have never been able to do 100%, 20 years earlier or whatever. So it creates more opportunity. That's that's why I want a new Nightmare movie, period, just because what could be done now practically and with the enhancement or the touch up and the help of digital
modern technology.
Yeah, because it's just another tool. I mean, I sat on a panel, well, not in a panel, but I went and saw Steve Johnson, who worked on my favorite, The Nightmare Freddy being torn apart by the souls. He was at a Fandom Fest, and he did a panel, and he's embraced digital, and he's been playing around with digital. He said, I want to. He made this short film that he made on his own dime. It's practical and digital together, and he goes, I think it needs to be more of a wedding, and it's just another tool for artists to use. But if you have it on set, the actors are able to react to it more. But at the same time, it's the long process to get it right because you keep trying it doesn't work. You got to get the lighting right. It can be exhausting waiting for the effects team to get it to all work. It's just, sometimes it can be a headache. But it's also very fun to whatever's in that frame, that's all we have to see. So figuring out how to do that on the set so you don't have to and do it. You don't, you never want to say, we'll do it in post. We'll do it in post. So, but I think people have bastardized it too much because it is just another tool. And a lot of times people don't even realize how much CGI they're seeing in their movies.
Yeah.
It's because it's not supposed to be seen.
Which is a good thing, though. I mean, that's what you want.
But I don't think people should hate it as much. It's become one of those blanket things where even now when we see practical stuff done really well, people assume it's CGI.
Mm-hmm.
But you just say, like, that we talked about that last week with the It and
the
Javier Botet and the Conjuring movies and all that, where those are people. They're people in costume. They're people in Doug Jones, or those people. It's not CGI. It's an actor and it's a makeup team kicking ass. But because no one believes in magic anymore because they think it's just pushing buttons anymore, and it's not. There's still a lot of creative people, and it's the stuff we could do now. It's just incredible. It really is. But I think they need to keep. That's why we talked about JJ. I love that Star Wars went back to practical because I can't watch them fucking Star Wars prequels because they're so cartoony. They're so poor looking. And when you do characters and creatures in CGI, the technology keeps advancing so fast. In 5 years, what's being done now is going to look bad.
Yeah.
This is how it is. Like the video games we all grew up in. I was looking, we were playing like Super Mario Brothers 3 or something to the tail. This came out in the 90s, really? Because I swore that was like it was that. It
Sure,
was
this
that
was in
bad.
1983. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you think that, but they advance so much. You look at a video game now, you're like, holy shit. I remember when like Tomb Raider came out, like wow. Now you look at it, holy shit, that's awful looking.
Yeah,
But
it's
like
hard
that,
to
the thing
look
is,
like.
that's how it happens. We're so like I remember in '84 when the last Starfighter came out, how amazing that was to the ships. Now you look at it and like, wow. But that's to me, that's the problem with computer generation because it keeps advancing. Whereas practical, if it's lit right and cut right, like the Thing and the Gremlins, all this stuff, it still holds up. Still, you can still watch it and not go, "Oh, that looks terrible," because it's tangible. It's there. It's got texture. It's real. The light, everything about it, because it's actually fucking there. And that's where practical needs to always be in the conversation and always on the schedule.
Yeah, and kind of to throw an idea of a good movies that are still doing practical effects. Chris Marr says the Hatchet movies do a lot of practical effects, and especially that face rip apart. I don't think that was digital. And then Ken Daniel says practical always hold up, and I think that's true. Good practical effects will hold up because let's face it, as good as Evil Dead is, those effects at the end are kind of bad. But we love it, and that's part of the point. I think. I mean, Sam Raimi had a small budget, so anyway, that's a lot to digest tonight. Lot to talk about. If you share the video, get other people in on the conversation, they can still comment, and a lot of us will come back and still look at the comments and answer anyway. Next week, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday, one of those 2 days, we're going to talk about Phantasm. I think Tuesday, what we're going to do. Keith has never watched the Phantasm series. Keith Saunders, that is. We're going to talk about Phantasm, the first one from 1979, that Coscarelli classic. But I'm sure we'll delve into the other 4 movies, and they're all really good movies in my opinion. I don't think there's a weak one of the bunch. I think it's just a strong series. It's just different chapters in the series, kind of like Star Wars. So join us when we talk about Phantasm. And if you have, when we ask, hey, we're going to have a show, what would you like us to talk about? Please answer. Because we love to hear from what you guys want to hear us dopes talk about. Anyway, for Seth, Keith, Nate, and Jared, thanks for joining us tonight. Don't forget to share the Horror Syndicate. Buy yourself a t-shirt because they're so damn cool.
And cheap right now.
Well, I don't know if they're still on sale, but get one anyway because they're cool and it
Is
helps
the sale over?
some of the stuff we have to deal with here at the Horror Syndicate. So anyway, have a good weekend, and we'll see you on probably Tuesday, I bet. Anyway, good night, and cut that off, Keith Saunders.